Hi guys, and welcome to my labor and delivery story time. It has been a long time in the making. It's been 3 weeks. Harrison is actually 3 weeks today. Today is Friday. What's today? The 6th of September. So I have my little fall sign here. I am in the process of putting out my fall decor. But anyway, I was really hoping to make this video kind of closer to when I actually delivered so that things and details were fresh in my mind. But let me tell you what, it has been a hectic 3 weeks. 3 kids is no joke, and we had some issues along the way. My dog is like walking around up there and I hear his collar and it's clinking and it's driving me insane. Let me get my little list out here because I do have an entire list of when things occurred during the labor and delivery. Real quickly, I went in for my 39-week appointment and my amniotic fluid levels were critically low, so I was told to go to the hospital to be induced at my 39-week appointment. Along the way, I was planning on coming back home and waiting for Pat to get here, and then we would drive to the hospital together. But I started getting cramps and contractions like Braxton Hicks on my way from my OB's office home, so I made the ultimate final decision to make a U-turn and head to the hospital. So Pat ended up getting a ride to the hospital from one of my friends, and I will start kind of the labor and delivery story from there. So I got admitted maybe about 11:30 or noon, and then at 1 o'clock they started me on a bag of fluids, so they put an IV in me. They also gave me an oral cervical ripener, so I was able to take the pill orally, which was pretty cool. So I got meso cervical ripener at 1 p.m. as well. Then I guess like it has to work for about 4 hours, so it was like a painfully long waiting game. We're just in the labor and delivery room and Pat is super bored, I'm super bored. Like I'm in my hospital gown, I'm in my fuzzy socks, and I'm just kind of biding my time. So anyway, at 4 p.m. I get put on Pitocin, and they started it at a level 2, and they were going to increase it every half an hour by 2. If you have not been following me, hello, welcome to the Daly family. Please subscribe down below. We'd love for you to join the Daly family. But anyway, if you have not been following me or you don't know, this is our 3rd and final baby. And it has always been in my birth plan to want to have a natural, unmedicated birth. And with Grayson, I didn't want to get an epidural. With Emerson, I didn't want to get an epidural, but my pain tolerance is like this. So, and also with my 2 other kids, I was put on Pitocin. So Pitocin makes it extremely difficult, at least for me, to be able to labor naturally, just because the contractions are not natural. So it's very hard to labor naturally when they're unnatural. And they come in more severe waves. It doesn't give you a break. It's very difficult. So when I found out I was being induced and being put on Pitocin, and that the Pitocin would be increasing pretty frequently, pretty drastically, my hopes had kind of fallen a little bit for being able to deliver naturally. So I was really trying to like psych myself up. I told all my nurses that I'm gonna try and do this naturally, like that it was my wish and my hope and my dream. So they were all like trying to rally behind me, and they wanted that for me too. But at the same time, they were trying to make me not feel bad if I did end up needing the epidural. They started me on Pitocin at 4 because the meso cervical ripener had worked. I was 80% effaced, super, super soft, and my doctor believed that putting me on Pitocin, my body would respond well to it. I had been laboring naturally through the increases in Pitocin. At around 6 p.m., they ended up breaking my water. I was still only like at around a 3 centimeters-ish. I had gone in only being like a 2, like a tight 2, they said. So laboring naturally through the Pitocin until about 6 p.m. They broke my water. Now, this was a very different feeling for me because in my 2 previous pregnancies, I was on an epidural when they broke my water with Grayson, and then my water broke simultaneously as I delivered Emerson. So I had never had the feeling of like what it was when my water broke with Grayson. So when they broke my water and I was still not yet on an epidural, it was a very, I wouldn't say it was painful when she broke my water. It just took her kind of a while to snag the bag of water with like this little hook thing, I think is what it looked like. I wasn't really paying attention. But anyway, it was like a warm gush and it felt like I peed myself. And then I had this kind of like lingering little cough from a sinus infection I had had the week prior. And so every time I coughed, it would come out. And it was just a very odd, uncomfortable feeling just because it was like wet and just, yeah, it was uncomfortable. And that is what happened at around 6-ish. After they broke my water, the contractions got really intense after that. I wouldn't say like right after. I was doing pretty well handling the contractions as they were getting stronger, as the Pitocin levels were increasing. By that point, I was in active labor. My contractions were coming every 2 to 3 minutes apart and they were getting more intense. I had to start breathing through them. I couldn't talk through them. I had to pretty much put down everything that I was doing and just like really focus my breath. I was so game for doing this naturally. So I was like in the zone and woosah. Around 9:30-ish, 9:45-ish, it's definitely dark out. My timelines are a little fuzzy because I wasn't writing this down. I did this afterwards and I'm trying to remember the chain of events here. I started to get the urge to push, and I was sitting on the bed and I was holding onto the sheets. I was breathing through them, I was clenching. You see a video, you see a snip in my labor and delivery vlog. Like I'm rocking back and forth, holding the sheets, and like I just feel something bearing down on my cervix, and like I just felt like it was pushing against the bed, like that it was right there, and I just had the urge to like wanna poop, because that's what the urge to push feels like. It feels like you need to poop. I got that feeling. I told my nurse, and she then checked me, and she was like, oh my goodness, like I have a little bit of like a lip of your cervix over on this side, but you're at an 8 centimeters. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I did it. I have labored. Dang it. Okay, he should be okay now. I was so excited. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be able to do this naturally. Like I only have 2 centimeters to go. I was so super pumped. I looked over at my husband and he had this look of just like, you got this. Like he was just, I don't know, like he just had this look like he was proud of me because he knew that that's what I wanted. So he was like excited for me. And then my nurse gave me like a high five and she's like, you got this. She was so sweet. And so basically from then on, like I was just in the zone. I was so pumped. I was like, all right, I got this. I can breathe through these. I have 2 more centimeters to go. My nurse was like going back and forth, getting stuff for the delivery for the doctor. She was getting like the little cart and the little table and the gloves and the this and the that, and setting up like the little incubator to be like the final setup for whatever they needed for the baby. So then I got the urge to like want to push again, and she's like, okay, I'm gonna call the doctor in. We're gonna call the doctor because you're 8, you could go super quick being the 3rd baby, like let's do this. The doctor then came in to check me 30 minutes from then. So while my nurse was like getting the room set up, the doctor came in 30 minutes after that, and she checked me. So maybe this is like about 10:15-ish or so. The doctor checked me, and she looked at me and she looked at the nurse, and she had this like, just this look on her face that something was wrong. And she's like, you're only like a 5 or a 6. I would say maybe like a 6. And she's like, she looked at the nurse and was like having this kind of like sidebar conversation, like, oh, I could see why you would think it was an 8. It's very difficult to tell. She's super thin, but yeah, and then she looked at me and she's like, yeah, you're only at like a 6. And my heart just sunk. Like, I cannot even begin to describe the feeling that I felt at that moment, but it was a mixture of like disappointment, sadness, despair, anxiety, anger, like all of the negative emotions on the emotion wheel is probably what I felt. And I looked at the nurse and I could tell that she was devastated. And like, here I am in pain, in active labor, and I actually felt bad for the nurse because I could see that she felt terrible, horrible for like giving me erroneous information. And like that type of information is so serious, right? Like at that moment was a turning point because I was just mentally and physically crushed. When I tell you this, I was mentally and physically crushed. Kind of in retrospect, I'm glad that I'm doing this kind of time-wise separated from the event because I can think more clearly about it. I was crushed, and all of my wusa and mental stamina went out the window. I started to have erratic breathing. I think I was having like a panic attack, if you can hear Harrison. I just couldn't control my breath anymore. The contractions just, like all of a sudden it was like a switch that they just got unbearable. And I think a lot of it had to do with like I wasn't focusing on my breathing. My thoughts were now someplace else. I'm gonna have to get him. Oh my goodness. Hi. Okay, thumbnail. Where was I? So I was devastated, right? And so at that point, like just mentally I shut down, and it became very difficult for me to labor in the way that I wanted to. I'm like writhing in pain. And my doctor's still in the room, and my doctor, you're gonna hear lots of weird noises here now. Oh, you have my hair, thank you very much. Oh, that's a new trick. You pulling my hair. My doctor actually was like, pretty much, I don't know the exact words that she used, but she was pretty much like, I think that you should opt for the epidural, considering how much pain you're in right now and you're only like a 5-6-ish. I think that you should opt for the epidural. I'm not sure the exact words she used, but that was pretty much the extent of it. So anyway, I was like, yes, I agree with you. Like, I'm done. At that point, I like checked out and I just wanted to meet my baby, and like all pride aside, give me the epidural so that I can actually do this like in peace now. When I'm looking at my timeline here, at that time I ordered the epidural. The epidural didn't take long to get there, but I want to say it was between like maybe a half an hour and 45 minutes. When the anesthesiologist got to my room, I was in so much excruciating pain. I had to sit still for her to do the epidural. I felt like I laid down and I felt the cold medicine when she gave me like the push, and I felt like this wave go through my legs, and I got a tingle in my toes, and she's like, can you wiggle your toes? Yes. I felt like a warm sensation, but that was it. It was just a warm sensation. I still felt everything. Like they were like poking my like leg, pretend this is my leg. I was like, they were poking my leg and I could feel everything. I could move my legs. I was like, I still felt every single contraction. It was so painful still. And the anesthesiologist was like, okay, well, you just got it. Give it like maybe about 10-15 minutes. And she gave me another dose with the button to like help facilitate getting a bunch of medicine to me all at once. They laid me down, which was super uncomfortable. All I wanted to do was just sit up and labor. If you sit up, the medicine's just gonna pool in your lower back and in your butt, and we want it to get to your legs and stuff. We want it to get everywhere. So they had me lay down, and then they were turning me on each side like every 5 minutes. it was so super uncomfortable because I'm trying to labor and I'm getting these really painful contractions and they're just like maneuvering me. I was so uncomfortable. I told them so. And I know it wasn't them, but I just felt the need to say that I was super annoyed. I still felt everything, and it had been maybe like another half an hour or so. And my nurse basically called the anesthesiologist to come back in. We need to get you different medicine. So at that time, I experienced the urge to have to push again. And now it's like close to like 11:30 or so. So I continued to labor basically naturally. And basically I was like, I need to push. And at this point I was screaming, I need to push. And I got this like new sensation, this new pain that I was trying to explain to my nurses. And they're like, what does it feel like? And I was like, it feels like burning, like unbearable pain right at the top of my pubic bone, like basically right above each lip. And the nurse was like, yeah, that's your baby's big head. She pulled the sheet aside, checked me, and was like, no wonder you need to push. Your baby's head is right there. You're 10 centimeters. I just got this panic because my doctor wasn't there yet. The anesthesiologist was going to get stronger meds, and like, so at that point, my doctor was like, blah, 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 10 minutes away or something. And I'm like trying to read my notes and remember what happened. But basically they were like, you have to hold off on pushing. My nurse was like, do a half-hearted push, just enough to get through the urge to have to push, but you gotta hold on. And, cause my doctor like wasn't there or something. And so I did some like half-hearted pushes, and it was the most excruciating thing. While I was doing these half-hearted pushes, my anesthesiologist swapped out the weaker medicine in my epidural for the stronger medicine. It gave me a push. Still felt everything because it hadn't taken like effect yet. My doctor came in, I screamed, I'm gonna push. And she was like already all garbed up. She was like, okay, let's do this. One push, I felt the head come out. It was the most odd and painful feelings I've ever felt. And it was so surreal. TMI, can you think of like the most satisfying poop you've ever taken? Like the biggest poop, and then when you're done, you just, like this wave of relief. Okay, so that's what it felt like when I felt the baby's head come out. I felt everything, and then there was relief because that was like around the neck area. And then I did another push and I felt the shoulders, and then everything kind of like slipped the rest of the way out. And I felt all of that, and I had never experienced that before because my other two, I was on the epidural with Emerson, even though it failed on half the side, I didn't get that same feeling because my water broke at the same time, and also I was numb on a half of my side. So it was just a different experience this time around, and I felt everything. Almost the second after I delivered, that's when my legs went completely numb, and I didn't feel, I tore. I got, I think, a 1st-degree tear over my scar tissue that I had when I delivered Grayson. And it wasn't bad. She only gave me 2 stitches, but I didn't feel them deliver my placenta, and I didn't feel them stitch me up. So like almost literally right as I delivered, the epidural kicked in. So that was labor and delivery. It was a whirlwind. One of my requests was to be the first to look and see what we had, like what the sex of the baby was. So nobody, it was silent in the room except for obviously Harrison, who was crying when he came out. But nobody else said anything, and they placed him on me, and we did skin to skin, and I lifted, like they gave him to me and he was laying on his side, and I lifted up his leg, and I was like, I don't even remember what I said, but I was like, oh my God, it's Harrison. Like immediately in love. Like I looked up at Pat, and he had like a little tear in his eye, and he was like pretending to like not cry. They did delayed cord clamping. He was a quick delivery. He still had a lot of the amniotic fluid and stuff in his little airways and passageways and everything. So he was like bubbly, spitty, all like this little clear liquid of the amniotic fluid. And I felt like he wasn't crying a lot. Like I felt like he was kind of crying odd or breathing weird, and it just kind of, it robbed the skin to skin time of joy and like my enjoyment of skin to skin, because I started freaking out about him and him being okay. And I kept asking the nurses around me, like, is he breathing okay? Is he fine? Is his color look okay? Is he crying like he's supposed to? I'm like looking around and like everybody seemed okay, but I was freaking out and getting like another little panic attack, and it kind of just robbed my enjoyment of just being there and calm and in peace doing the skin to skin. And finally I was like, can he just cut the cord, because I need you guys to take him and clean him up and make sure that he's breathing okay. So Pat clipped the cord and then they took him, and he was born at 12:22 a.m. He was the first baby born that day for my hospital, so yay, we win. And so they took him, and it was just because he was delivered fast that like during the birthing process, when they're in the birth canal, when they're in the birth canal for a long time, it squeezes, kind of like that process squeezes out all of the amniotic fluid. But because he was delivered so quickly, he wasn't in that canal long enough for that process to occur, so all of that kind of stuff stayed in his body. Emerson was the same way. She was like a push and a half baby, and she was very spitty and bubbly, and she choked on it, and it was just horrific. Like the first couple of nights when that stuff is still in them, it's terrifying. So anyway, he was fine. They weighed him, they measured him, they did his little footprints, and then I got to do skin to skin again. So I was stuck in the labor and delivery room. I couldn't go up to recovery yet because they needed my legs to work. And because the epidural pretty much kicked in right as he was delivered, it took me 3 hours for me to regain movement in my legs. I was like Kill Bill and like, wiggle your big toe, wiggle your big toe. Basically trying to like get my blood circulating to my legs and massaging them and whatever for the entire time down in the labor and delivery room. And then Harrison breastfed. He did great. We were breastfeeding. It was just like a chill time. But I was hungry and I was exhausted. At this point now, it's like 3:33, like 4 o'clock in the morning. I had basically been up for 24 hours, and I stopped eating at 5 p.m. the previous day. And so I was just, at this point, the wave, like all of the adrenaline had started to kind of go away, and I was just in chill mode. Breastfeeding also makes you kind of sleepy, and so I was donezo. I got up, I used the bathroom. They had this super cool little cart. It kind of looked like a forklift meets a mall massage chair, is the best way I can describe it. It was super comfortable. It basically takes all of the pressure off your pain points or your pressure points in your body, and you just like melt into this seat. It was so comfortable. There's like a seat for your butt, a place for your knees, and you just kind of are there. And that's the little thing that she got me, my nurse got me to use the bathroom. Bless her heart. She may have gotten my dilation wrong, but she is a godsend angel, because anybody that has to deal with that aftermath and also try and get you to go to the bathroom and also try to squirt this water and then this and then that and then I finally got into a wheelchair. She ordered me a wheelchair after I was done going to the bathroom. We finally went up to recovery. Harrison was like, all I was doing was staring at him. He's currently passed out, by the way. All I was doing was staring at him. I was so happy. And they had like graham crackers and Jello and orange juice and ginger ale and like everything all waiting upstairs in the recovery room for me, because literally from the time that I went pee all the way up to recovery, it was like maybe a 15-20 minute like wait between then and the recovery room. I was complaining that I was like, I don't feel right. I feel weird. I feel very tired. I'm so sleepy. I feel nauseous. I was like complaining the whole time. So my nurse like called ahead snacks for me because I was like hangry, but also I felt like I was gonna pass out. So I've never tasted better graham crackers in my life. And I had ginger ale and it was so wonderful, and I chugged the water that they give you in the big pitcher. I don't know why, but like I love I had my own water cup, but I love drinking water out of like the one that they provide you. So I slept with one eye open for the remainder of like nighttime because there was only like a couple more hours until it was daylight out. And I slept with one eye open because he kept choking and spitting up this like amniotic fluid. Like I said, it's terrifying. So, and Pat was over there snoring. That is basically labor and delivery up to when I start my vlog for the first 24 hours with a newborn, which I will leave a card here and a link down below that you guys can check that out. I want to say that I delivered naturally, but technically not, because I had an epidural in my system. I don't know. I felt everything. It was excruciating. I'm gonna go with I delivered naturally. Anyway, that's it for this labor and delivery story. I hope that you guys liked it. Harrison is currently in a milk coma, but I'm gonna attempt to show you guys him. Oh my goodness, hi. Look at that sweet baby. Oh my goodness, I love you. He's a little milk junk. Yes, you are. Okay. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.